Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to Desert Sky Adventures. Well, today is Friday the 13th of October, 2023, and just a couple days ago, I had a very unique opportunity to go into the historic Toughnut Mine here in Tombstone with famous paranormal investigators Greg Lawson, Richard Estep, and the rest of their team. Once we were down below ground, about 200 feet or so, the mine manager, Robert Davenport, a man who's been managing the mines for over 20 years now, is going to tell us about some first-hand accounts that he personally experienced in the mine. Take a look at this.
Right behind you, mate. About 40 feet behind you. Yeah. Okay. Cheers. How you been doing, David?
Good, good.
Good.
I was out of town for like the last 3 weeks, so
Good
to be back.
Well, good to have you back, bud.
Thanks, sir.
This is the hardest part, right here, getting in. Once you get there in here, then...
Imagine trying to climb that if this was 70 pounds of ore strapped to your back.
You just have to keep thinking, money, 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 money.
Oh, yeah. The stuff these guys had to do down here was just...
Yeah.
Imagine doing all this by candlelight, too.
I gotta get up there and make sure you don't get my alcohol.
There you go.
These lights are tripping my eye out pretty hardcore. I feel like I can see really well out of one eye and not out of the other. I don't know why. It's sparkling. Look at it all. Oh my god, that's fabulous. I can't, oh, I guess they can carry it.
Fault lines, whatever they call those things.
Do we have a canary?
Not anymore. I don't think you really need one unless you're doing blasting and stuff like that.
Tweet, tweet. You know, I'm very easy to see myself in the face. You doing good, Rob?
Cool? Yep. It's a little ways, isn't it?
It is a bit. What's that, 200 feet?
It's 92 feet
Wow.
from there to the floor down here. Look, oh, you've already seen it. Yep, go ahead.
Bismuth? No.
Could be silver ore. That's a long way down.
I don't know, do you want all these lights, the lights on, or?
I'm
Yeah.
going now.
Okay.
So does this part of the mine flood at all?
No, none of the mines.
It doesn't?
None of these mines here flooded at all. That's the town story.
Ah.
The 26 mines are.
Well, what do you think?
Oh, I am beyond impressed.
I'm gonna turn my helmet light off. Room pods?
Yep, we got REM pods. Set those up. Those should not be affected by anything other than proximity.
No Brad. He's a no-go.
We can only hope and try and catch up with this and take another.
A little
turn.
claustrophobic.
We'd love to hit them.
Yeah, I had a tour down here one time when I'd broken my arm the day before. This arm in 8 places, and I didn't have anybody do the tour, so I had to do the tour. And imagine it was pretty good pain. So I was coming through it, about 3/4 of the way through, I was like, get a little lightheaded. It's like, come on, suck it up, keep going, you can do it. And about that time I had just like that on my shoulder, and I turned around to see who it was patting me on the shoulder, and everybody was about 20, 30 feet behind me. I was like, okay. Then I got down here, and actually I was sitting right there, and everybody else was in here. And I was just feeling like I was gonna pass out. And I was like, come on, suck it up, you can do this. And I heard, yep, and another pat on the shoulder. And I told everybody, okay, it's time to leave. It's like, I want it out of here. And then working down here, when I was working on the dinner theater, there were several times I worked down here by myself, and there were several times I felt like I just wasn't alone. And there were several times where I could have done something that would have probably gotten me hurt some, and it's just like I was almost moved away from it. It was just a weird feeling, real weird sensation. I've been all over the world. I've been in holes all over the ground in the world, and I've never felt anything like I did while I was working down here. It was just different. And then we've had a couple of situations over in the Good Enough Mine, the one I told you about, where I had I was doing the tours, and I was on the one tour, and there was a 12-year-old girl on the tour. One of our duties as a tour guide is to watch everybody, watch your respiration, watch your pupils, and just make sure everybody's maintaining okay, because some people get down there, they become claustrophobic, or they've been drinking before they went down there, and it's hit them down there. So we really watch them, and this one little girl was looking down this drift, and she looked really shook up, and she went and got behind her dad. Well, when we got to the surface, she was from Florida. When we got to the surface, her dad came over to me and introduced himself to me and recognized me from Afghanistan. He was a combat vet. And he said, my daughter wants to talk to you. I was like, okay, and so I went over and sat next to her, and I said, what can I do for you, girl? And she said, I understand you manage the mines here. And I said, yes, ma'am. She goes, well, that drift where the big crystals are, the bug thing that you called it, why are those 2 miners still working down there and they don't know they're dead? And I went, I don't know. Why don't you tell me about them? Just trying to make light of it, you know. And she told me about how one was wearing a brown vest and it looked like he'd been cut here because there was blood on the vest and a cut in the vest. And he was wearing a blue neckerchief with a silver ring holding it. I was like, oh, okay. She goes, and the other guy was hiding behind him. He didn't like you at all because you keep bringing people down there. I was like, oh, okay. And so I told her, I said, well, next time I go down there, I'll ask them what they're doing down there. And she went, okay. And I just blew it off after that. Didn't think anything about it. About 2 weeks later, I had this old lady from Germany. She's 80 years old, from Germany, that flew into Phoenix and came directly here and went on the tour. And so there's no way she knew the 12-year-old girl. And I took her on the tour. We got down there, and she kept looking down there, looking at me, looking down there, looking at me, and looking pretty disgusted with me. And then on her way out, she called me over and said, what are those 2 gentlemen doing down there? And I said, which ones are those? You know, because a lot of men on the tour, on that tour. And she said, the 2 miners down there are still mining. And I said, the 2 miners? She goes, yeah, the dead ones that are down there. And I said, can you describe them to me? And she said, well, the one doesn't like you at all. He's hiding behind the other guy. And I was like, uh-oh. And then she said, the other one's wearing a brown vest, looked like he was stabbed here, and he's wearing a blue neckerchief with a silver ring. And I just looked at her, and she goes, you looked a little shocked. I said, yeah. She says, just go down there and tell them to move on. They don't really mind you, but just tell them to move on. They didn't like you, you'd already know. I was like, okay. So later that night, I went back down there, and I'm thinking, I'm glad none of my friends are with me. I go down there, I look down there, I say, hey guys, you guys need to move on. You're messing up my tour guides. And in between the 2, this is what was really weird. Almost all my tour guides had troubles with their flashlights right at that area. They just went dead. And I went down with mine. I have one that will stay lit for 56 days on Firefly. I mean, the thing's a good flashlight. And I went down there 3 times with fully charged batteries. And when I got there, they were drained. And then after I went down there and told them to leave, we haven't had problems since. It was weird. I've never experienced anything like that, and I'm not sure I want to again. But it was different.
So Robert, I'm a coal miner's grandkid, and one of the things I learned was that miners are a lot like sailors in that they're very superstitious. I don't mean that disrespectfully at all. It's just true, isn't it?
That's true.
They'll talk about things like Tommy knockers and things like that. I gotta ask, any experiences with stuff like that down here?
You know, I have heard knocking a couple times, and I don't know if it was in my mind or if I really heard it, you know, because I studied a lot of the Tommy knockers. The mines here back in the 1800s were mined by the English and Irish.
Cornishmen, primarily.
So, yeah. So, I mean, this one here was started in 1889. And where we're sitting now, this area here was mined out back then by hand. So there were, in the historic district here, or in the mining district here, there were 34 deaths in the mines.
The mines in general?
The mines in general. This mine here that I know of, 2 for sure. One was a man named Flores, and that was down 100 feet down. That shaft you walk by there goes down to that area. And that area is blocked off now. But it had a man by the name of Flores was down there. And from what I understand, he had 3 sticks of dynamite in his back pocket. And he reached over to pick something up off the ground, and his butt hit the ground, and it put him into the other wall. And you used to be able to see little bone shards in the wall. I mean, it impaled him in the wall. So it was pretty interesting. And another guy here supposedly went down a shaft about 80, 90 feet. He was mad at his foreman. I was yelling and cussing at him, then forgot where he was standing, turned around to walk off, and went down the hole. Good way to get rid of a problem employee, I guess. But you know,
2 deaths that you know of.
yeah.
2 miners.
And there were
still
three supposedly in this mine, but I have not been able to find the third.
Right, but you know of 2, and you've heard about 2 miners that are still working. Coincidence?
Yeah, I know. I've thought about that. Thanks for reminding me. Yeah, this mine here, it's really weird because, you know, when you develop a sense when you've been in the jungle and stuff like that, you develop that sense of when you're alone and when you're not.
Yeah.
You know, and I've been down here a number of times where I know I'm not alone. It's just weird. You just feel it. And I've walked all over the place and looked at everything, you know, and it's like, there's nobody down here. And I've swept behind me and gone back to see if there are footprints, no footprints. You know, it's like, okay. So, you know, it's a little strange, but, and to be honest with you, I never believed in this stuff until I really started doing this. And there's some things like, and hearing it just like that. And when that happened to me here, there was a guy standing right there, turned around and said, "You clapping your hands?" Like, nope, something slapped me on the back, you know. And I didn't tell him that. I was like, yeah, because I didn't want them to freak out. I was freaking out enough. Just didn't want them to know. But I mean, it's weird.
It sounds to me though like the miners just recognize you as one of their own, and that's like a comrade thing, you know. Like it'll be okay, right?
You know, when they were down here before in the Good Enough, that's something that I learned when I was working with them. After they left, I went back down in the mine just without all the lights on. I just went down with my headlamp, and then I went down there and I just turned it off and just sat there for about an hour. And which an hour seems like an eternity down there in the dark, but sat there and you could just feel comfort. Like, you know, when I'm down here, I am totally comfortable. I'm more comfortable here than I've ever been anywhere in my life. And it's peaceful, it's relaxing, and you feel like there's something there just, I don't know, lack of a better word, guarding you, you know, protecting you. It's weird. It really is. And something that the last paranormal group brought up was that, you know, it seems like they're embracing me because I'm trying to keep their passion and their life going, you know, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do with this. This is an 1800s dinner theater. Where else do you find that? You know, I've kept it as realistic as possible to what the miners had back in the day, you know, and I think that that's what is sort of binding us in a way, if you will, you know. So I don't know.
Is it fair to say this is your happy place?
Oh, absolutely.
So there's a theory, I don't know if I'm doing you any favors telling you this, but there is a theory if you talk to mediums and people like that for spirits, time doesn't work the same for them as it does for us. And that once we pass on, we're able to come back and visit our happy place, but at different times. Mayhap one of those miners is you.
Oh, thank you.
What's that episode? I'm serious though, that's comforting.
Yeah.
I mean, like, we all kind of know where we'd like to spend time after we shuffle on, and if this is your happy place, why not? Maybe it's future you keeping an eye on present you, you know? It's no stranger than the idea of dead miners from the 1800s.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's just floating that out there. Just floating that out there, right?
Yeah, you guys make it harder for me to work down here. That's interesting.
But at least you know they're like letting you know they're here, and it feels almost like a handing the torch off to the next foreman or manager, if you will. And there doesn't sound like there's any sort of mischievousness or anything like that. It's kind of like a
No, there's not. You know, it's weird because when I first started down here, you know, I honestly don't know if it was me or not, but it's like I would lay a shovel down one way, and I always seem to set a shovel down a certain way, but I turn around and it's a little different. You know, I turn around, it's a little different. And from going from this angle to this angle, they don't fall that way, you know? And I keep looking at it going, how'd that do that? You know, different things like that is just weird.
Yeah.
But I don't run into that anymore. I did when I first came down. It was like, you know, there'd be a rock in the middle of the trail or something. You know, it's like, how'd that roll down? You know, or did it? And, you know, just weird things that happen repetitively the same. That's what got me, because, you know, I mean, rocks roll down all the time, but to roll down in the center of the trail each time is just weird. You know, weird things like that.
Any of your stuff, your equipment get moved when the mine is closed, things like that?
Yeah, the shovels particularly. They moved around. They seemed to move to me. When I was working in here, when I was putting this stuff together, every now and then I'd set something on a tabletop and it'd be on top of the box, you know, and I'm like, that doesn't roll, you know, it's square. But, well, maybe I'll put it there. But I'm more and more convinced that maybe I didn't.
Yeah.
You know.
You can only second guess yourself so many times,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. You know, and for somebody that doesn't believe in that, it's really hard not to believe in it now.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Yeah. So where do you stand right now? Do you believe in it? Kinda?
Swaying more that way.
Gotcha.
You know, I've seen too many things, and I'm a very scientific person. You know, I really look into things that happen, and I don't know. I can't explain it. It's weird. You know, it's put it this way: when I first got here, I definitely did not believe in any of it, and I thought it was totally stupid and insane. Now I'm beginning to think that I'm stupid and insane. You know, because I've just seen too many things for there not to be something to it. Like you said, you can only have so many things happen before you know something did happen. But that patting me on the shoulder, there was no doubt on that one. No doubt on that. And talking right in my ear, yeah. There was no doubt on that one, because there's nobody else down here to do that to me.
Right.
You know, and everybody was right in front of me that I could see. So.
My grandfather always used to say each different mine had its own personality, if that makes any sense. You
Yes.
almost speak about them like they were alive. I mean, not literally, but you know. Is that fair to say of the Toughnut and the Good?
The different mines here, they definitely have their own personality. They have their own feel to them. They have, I don't know, this is the one that I'm the most comfortable in.
Right.
Actually, this one makes me really comfortable. I feel more comfortable here than I do in my own house, actually. It's weird. You just feel totally peaceful here. The Good Enough, it's peaceful, but it always makes you look around and you're inquisitive. You know what I mean? It's like, like you see something, but you don't, you know. That always get in the Good Enough all the time. And I get that way at this one down the next 100 foot down. I get that way in here. The Gerard, everything feels bizarre in there. And that one's a bigger, deeper, but it's more of a rugged mine, you know. But I'm used to things like that. But that one, it just feels different.
Bizarre, you said.
Yeah, you feel not really uncomfortable, but you feel aware of everything, you know. You feel like you need to be aware of everything. Let's put it that way.
As if there's not that guarding comfort that you have here.
Yeah, it's not really a doubt. It's just I don't know, just like when you've been gone from your house for a long time, and you come back and you turn on the lights and you walk in, how you scan everything, you feel like you have to look at everything, check everything. That's the way you feel in that one. It's weird.
You ever slept in here? Ever spent the night sleeping in the mine?
Oh, I have in here, yeah.
Comfortable, no strange dreams or anything?
Fine down here. This is great down here. I worked overnight down here and everything, and been find down here. Goes to another level where there was a real bad mine fire back in the day. They used to use acetylene generators to power lamps like in the saloons and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, they used one down in the mine and it leaked and it exploded. And look at the minerals down there, the fused. Temperatures had to be well over 2,800 degrees. And you'd have gale force winds with that. So, I mean, anybody was down there vaporized, basically. And I can't find any record of anybody being down there or not, but nobody'd know.
Right.
You know, so it's always made me wonder. And the hallways in that area are totally charred. You know, everything's black from soot and everything. And that's part of this mine, too. There's a cave-in in between those two sections, and that section there I think weakened it when that happened. But I can get to that one through the Gerard, and I've wondered if that isn't what makes me uncomfortable in the Gerard at times. You know, it's really interesting. A lot of history in this mine here. A lot of history. And this mine was mined from 1889 all the way to 1974.
For gold?
So, silver mainly.
Silver.
Silver, lead, manganese.
Gotcha.
And there was gold as a byproduct. Out of the district, they took 100,000 ounces as a byproduct.
Very cool.
How far under the surface are we right now?
What's that?
How far under the surface are we?
Where you're at right now, about 120 feet. And this room here is just short of 2 football fields long.
Wow.
Give you an idea. It goes all the way back there, back past the light. So it's 586 feet long, 37 feet wide, and 31 feet tall. Give you an idea. This room here is 106 feet long.
All narrowed out all mined out by hand, all of it.
All mined out by
Picks
hand
and
in this area.
shovels.
What's the building above us? Is it just street or is it?
Actually, if you go down just a little bit farther that way, that yellow house that was up on top of the hill,
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
underneath it.
Oh, that'd be weird.
I was down here 2.5 years by myself working on this room, so I figured if they were after me, I knew it already had me. So,
A lot of people in situations like this, they live in a kind of bubble, and their deal is like, I'm focused on my stuff. So if you're here, you do you. Just don't mess with me. I won't bother you, and we'll get along. You know, we run into that quite a lot, and there's nothing wrong with that at all.
I could completely see myself if I lived here or whatever, just to come down here and have lunch.
Yeah.
Just to get away from everybody and just come down here.
Come
It's
down
so
here,
nice
read
and
the paper,
cool.
man.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great? And you've got no cell phone signal,
Right.
so you're not doom scrolling down here.
Yeah.
You should be selling tickets for this as like a retreat or something. Have people come down and get some genuine peace and quiet.
well, I've had a wedding down here, and I mean, but I have different events down here. It's pretty interesting. So,
Well, what do you think?
I think I'm even more baffled every time I talk to these guys.
Me first.
You know, they're just following the vein, huh?
When they mined back in the day, they didn't have a real set way of doing it. What they did is, it's just like, I use an analogy of like a tree stump. You figure the tree stump as the opening to the mine, and they followed the roots wherever it went. When it played out, they just went down another route and followed it. And that's the way they did it. And that's why the older mines, when they're massive like this, are more dangerous, because you don't know how thick the areas are. And I've gone through the floor in a couple of places.
Oh, wow.
And it shakes you up a little bit. That's why when you first go in, we always tie off. And
What a trip, huh?
Cardio, isn't it?
Yeah. All right, folks, so that'll wrap it up for our
mine
ghost
workout.
stories from inside the Toughnut Mine. I want to give a big
Nothing
thank you
better.
to Greg Lawson and the rest of his team for allowing me to travel along with them the last week and pal along on some of their paranormal investigations. It was a very unique experience, and they're a bunch of great guys, and couldn't be more thankful for allowing me to come along and film what they got into on those nights. Those videos are up on the channel now, so go back and check them out if you haven't seen them yet. I also want to thank Robert Davenport, a good friend of mine and a great guy that runs the mine, for telling us his stories and, you know, telling them to a group of people who are definitely going to believe what he's saying. So it's very interesting down there in those mines. I always recommend, if you come to Tombstone, check them out. But that will about do it for today, folks. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you did. Please leave a comment, leave a like, hit subscribe if you haven't already. Also, don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. I know I forget to promote those things, but they are out there. So for those of you who support the channel, we definitely appreciate it, I should say. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, until the next video, we'll see you down the road.